Welcome to our main holiday movie. Going away as a family of four is a rare occurrence these days because of where each of us are on the timeline of life. The second to last occasion we all went away was in September 1991, 21 years ago. And on this occasion we all went to Los Angeles, San Diego and Tijuana. Well, how do you like Disney, Maylee?
Do you like the bobsled? Yeah. She didn't like the bobsled before. You were terrified of the monster. But I don't like it anymore.
Oh yeah, the camera's shaking around like nobody's business. Come on, Maylee, don't be shy. November 1993, 19 years ago, was the last time we were all together internationally, and on this occasion we went back to our ancestral village in Guangzhou, China. This is organised chaos. By the way, we're on a crossing. We're on a crossing here. So that may What's going on here? What'd you do, Simon?
I gave him my bones.
What, in his cap?
No, in his hands.
In his hands, and he didn't want it, he chucked it on the ground.
Secretary's place.
麻煩啊嘛，佢就肯形式一間，即係今日食得方便咯，特產又要切又要剩係嘛。
唔識聽，
唔食㗎，
你話咩話
佢話叫佢去嗰度攞嚟食正好，係啊。
？She said, "Don't help yourself.
係啊。
Don't help yourself. 你話我多謝多謝。
Customs. Customs will take it away.
No, back to the hotel.
Just take a few.
Just take a couple back to the hotel.
I think Hong Kong will be all right.
Yeah, because they don't grow anything.
And so, 19 years later, in 2012, Maylee suggested we all meet up on the Gold Coast, and from there, Lillian, Simon and her proposed the idea of catching up with Alex and Lisa Chong, Letitia Donald, and then flying down to Sydney to meet up with Peter, Tracy, Jack and Sarah Sampi, people we hadn't seen for a very, very long time. So, first stop, Auckland Airport, where Maylee would travel to the Gold Coast via Brisbane, and Lillian and I would travel direct into the Gold Coast via Woongarrah. Why not? Too early. Alex and I go back a long way, almost 60 years. Here's Alex top left in 1956, 56 years ago. Next to him is my father, and next to him is my mother. Below my mother and father are my grandfather and grandmother. And yes, that's me, bottom right. Lisa and Alex were married on the 6th of February 1994. Where there's Alex, there's always a camera. In fact, Alex was our wedding photographer in 1975. Getting married for me was such a traumatic experience that I've never done it again since. Anyway, when we arrived at Alex's place in Brisbane, there was of course the usual photo shoots. Shortly after, Alex took us to a nearby Buddhist temple for a look around. Next was lunch at Lisa's restaurant. There was a big argument as I attempted to pay the bill, but I was heavily defeated. This is the 5th time in a row that Alex paid for the meal, last times being on the Gold Coast, and then in Wellington, and in Taupo and at his wedding. We made a quick stop to buy a cheesecake, and that evening Lisa took time off her busy schedule and came home to cook for us. We were spoilt that day. That evening, Alex reminded us of our close family ties. We were the only other Chong family that put in a death notice for his mother. Next, a quick diversion that afternoon to see Letitia Donald on the northern side of Brisbane City. Simon decided to take the underground tunnel. At 4.8 kilometres long, it's the longest in the country to date, although a longer one is planned to the airport. The Clem Jones tunnel cost $3.2 billion and was a financial disaster. When the project was finished in 2010, the 2 German tunnel boring machines, costing $50 million each, were buried in the tunnel in specially built pits. But first, a blast from the past.
Stand back to back. No.
Why?
I just want to check the size. What's so funny?
Taller than I am. Only not by much though.
How old are you?
I don't know.
What's the age? 12?
10.
And 10.
I'm almost the same size as you. Not that short. At least I'm taller than you. Yeah.
And how old are you, Maylee?
9. Was 9. It's not my fault. I'm too small.
Maylee is still the smallest, but she's over it now. Letitia, amongst other things, told us of her latest exploits, joining the police force. Personally, I think she would make an excellent policewoman. You're so the next day, the girls went shopping at Pacific Fair, about 10 minutes walk from our apartment, while I stayed back at the apartment playing solitaire on the computer. The day after that, the 4 of us went off to Sydney.
This is the story of your life, isn't it? Waiting around an airport.
One of the stories of my life.
One. Who paid for all this?
Good question.
No, Jack paid for it. So we don't have that in New Zealand? No. Hungry Jack. Near Sydney Airport, we picked up our rental car and then headed off to Oxford Street for what seemed like hundreds of hours of shopping. Then finally headed over the Sydney Harbour Bridge to Peter and Tracy's place at Woongarrah, an hour and a half's drive. As we passed Milson's Point, I reminded myself that I was there 41 years ago, waiting for a train. The next day was April 25th, Anzac Day, and while waiting for the 9 o'clock session to start at Turkley, we took a side trip to Nora Head.
Cross there and start getting wet.
Jack Zampi, aged 13, had a 3 a.m. start that morning as part of the dawn ceremonies.
Plans were spread across the Australian newspapers. The recruiting depots were swamped with young men ready.
Jack had to stand perfectly still for an hour or so, while the rest of us looked on. Later that day, after lunch, we went to a nearby daily pelican feeding show at a place called The Entrance.
too, but they're here before the people.
Yeah,
Where are these people supposed to feed them?
that's right.
So welcome everybody. There is only one species of pelicans in Australia called the Australian spectacled pelican. The other 7 species are all over the world. The Australian spectacled pelican is bigger in size. They also have the longest beak and their colourings are different. The Australian spectacled pelican is the largest water bird in Australia. The pelicans have known to soar to 3,000 metres and can remain in the air for 24 hours and have known to occasionally visit the southern coast of Papua New Guinea and the north coast of New Zealand and North Island, but only breed here in Australia. Pouch, it doesn't look very big, but it actually holds about 13 litres of water. The only difference between the male and the female pelican is their size. The females are the smaller ones with a shorter bill and the males are taller. The juvenile here also, you can see the different colours. So it's a big male. Both sides, it starts to show a slate blue line. The pelicans lay about 2 to 4 like a large duck-sized egg. Not all of them may survive. The incubation period is about 32 to 35 days. And a pelican is fully grown within 14 weeks and are usually independent to make a journey from their main nesting grounds from Lake Eyre in South Australia to the east coast.
There's a lot of blah blah blah, buzz 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 with pelicans, and after some photo shoots we took an expensive ice cream break. The next day we went to a shopping mall for an expensive lunch and then drove back to Sydney and then flew back to the Gold Coast. And a few days later we flew back to New Zealand while Maylee spent a few more days on the Gold Coast before heading off to Europe. A great time was had by all. Good to see I'm not the only person in the world that wears socks and jandals on a plane. Anyway, we finished this movie with pictures of Peter Sampi in 1973, 39 years ago.